So averse to critical analysis and self-reflection are the Coens, that it would take 14 features for them to spin what is arguably their most autobiographical yarn. What began as a mere sketch of an idea for a short film about a young Jewish boy being high at his bar mitzvah rapidly evolved into a sprawling portrait of existential crisis set against a backdrop they held very dear to their hearts, St. Louis Park, Minnesota, in the late 1960s, aka the very same backdrop for the Coens' own formative years. This film, 2009's A Serious Man, finds the Coens directly engaging both their Jewish heritage and their Midwestern roots to deliver what is quite possibly their most intimate film to date. Reading like a modern-day retelling of the biblical story of Job, A Serious Man is a film about one man's interminably frustrating struggle with faith. After the A-list bonanza that was Burn After Reading, the Coens take the opposite tack by assembling a cast of unknowns, none of whom come from the brothers' established repertory of regular players, but all of whom are able to deliver the brothers' unique brand of quirk and characterization. Stage actor Michael Stuhlbarg plays Larry Gopnik, a mild-mannered mathematics professor whose faith in God is put to the test on an almost daily basis. Stuhlbarg's non-celebrity is a blank slate, giving him an everyman quality onto which the audience can project their own existential crises.
Yes.
He haggles with his students over grades, he can't control his own kids, and his attempts to salvage his marriage to his wife Judith, played by Sari Lennox, are quickly becoming a lost cause. Lennox runs the risk of pigeonholing herself as the evil, cheating wife, but her own convictions and sincere charms work well in her favor. As Judith's new beau, Cy Abelman, actor Fred Melamed steals the show. He's an overbearing presence with no conception of personal space. His cool, calm demeanor makes his invasion into Gopnik's family all the more unsettling. The only ally Gopnik seems to have is his idiot savant brother, Arthur, played by character actor Richard Kind in a hunched-over, almost bedridden performance. To the chagrin of the marketing department, the absence of any familiar faces ends up working in the Coens' favor. By taking our attention away from who is in the film, we're able to more clearly focus on what the film is trying to say. But what is it trying to say? The Coens themselves don't even seem to know, and that's kind of the point. What is there to say when confronted with the unknowable will of a higher power? After a brief absence, Roger Deakins returns again as director of photography, adopting an earth-toned color palette that complements returning production designer Jess Gonshore's recreation of Midwestern suburbia circa 1967. The 185:1 35mm film image is expectedly handsome, boasting classical camera work and inspired visuals that bask in sunny, warm tones during exterior sequences and highlights that take on a slightly colder, bluish cast in interiors. A Serious Man finds the Coens playing with framing and depth of field to an interesting degree, adopting a shallow focus overall and a hyper-shallow lens specifically for sequences in which the characters are high, in addition to a recurring motif of canted angles that serve to illustrate Gopnik's increasing disorientation. Carter Burwell again composes the score, using a lilting harp and piano chords played in the minor key to add an air of mystery to the proceedings while also recalling the old-world sensibilities that inform the film's character. Additionally, the Coens use period-appropriate psychedelic rock tracks from prominent bands like Jefferson Airplane, Jimi Hendrix, and the Velvet Underground as the encroaching voices of modernity, threatening to penetrate this ancient culture from the outside. The opening of A Serious Man is worth mentioning, made notable by sheer virtue of its inclusion. Presented in the old-fashioned 1:33:1 aspect ratio, the prologue posits itself as a bit of old Jewish folklore, concerning a man who has invited an old family friend into his humble home for soup and shelter from a cold winter's night, only for his wife to claim the old man as a Dybbuk, a malevolent spirit bearing the guise of the recently deceased. While some take this sequence as a prologue showing the genesis of the Gopnik family's bad fortune, the Coens publicly insist that it has no bearing on the overall plot. Indeed, they made up the story themselves because they wanted a separate short to play in front of the feature. Nevertheless, this short introductory sequence, spoken entirely in Yiddish with subtitles, sets the mood for the ensuing story, while also introducing the Gentiles in the audience to some of the more arcane tenets of Judaism. It stands to reason that the Coens' most personal film would contain all the hallmarks of their unique directorial signature. Well-established Coen tropes like exaggerated minor characters, pitch-black gallows humor, brutally abrupt violence, the off-screen deaths of major characters, and the iconography of middle-class flyover country are all readily apparent. What's not as obvious, however, is the notion that A Serious Man's message just might hold the key to understanding the Coens' entire body of work. The film opens with a non-assuming quote, "Receive with simplicity everything that happens to you." That acts as something of a cautionary word of advice. In other words, don't try to read too hard into something that's not there. First described by Tony Shalhoub's quick-witted lawyer in The Man Who Wasn't There, the uncertainty principle is also taught by Gopnik as an academic way to convey the simple truth that we can't ever really prove to know what's truly going on. It's not exactly nihilism, but the Coen's core artistic message seems to be that obsessively searching for patterns or meaning in life makes fools of us all. And a cursory glance at the plots to their previous films reveals this notion to be a constant through line. Many of their previous narratives, like Burn After Reading, The Lady Killers, and The Big Lebowski, work from a structure where an increasingly convoluted plot is ultimately rendered meaningless. A Serious Man picks up this torch and runs with it, by detailing the plight of a man who uses his religion to try and make sense of the chaos in his own life. He fails to heed the advice laid out for him at the very outset, torturing himself to find meaning in his suffering when there ultimately is none. Ironically, however, the act of assigning a deeper meaning behind the Coen's filmography also fails to heed this central conceit, making fools of us all. A Serious Man asks hard questions, but provides little in the way of answers. And rightfully so, for a film that concerns itself with vague concepts of God, fate, and destiny. Everything about the film, including its knockout ending, defies easy explanation, and that's kind of the point. A Serious Man premiered at the Toronto Film Festival to strong critical acclaim, immediately announcing itself as a major presence in the 2009-2010 awards circuit. Its limited theatrical release would generate middling box office success, but it received no shortage of industry accolades, including the Robert Altman Award at the Independent Spirit Awards, and a Golden Globe nomination for Stuhlbarg's performance. The praise culminated with an Oscar nomination for Best Picture, and while the film would ultimately go home empty-handed, it could console itself with its certified reputation as one of the brothers' best works.